Dannia is a superstar powerhouse in what she does. So I just want to get started by asking the both of you, what encouraged you to both be entrepreneurs?
What encouraged me to become an entrepreneur, my father, I think a lot of the similarities we have as Arab Americans is how much our parents and family inspire us. You know, family is a crutch of our culture. It's a priority in our culture. And I grew up watching my parents run a medical spa. My father's a plastic surgeon. He had a medical spa in Maryland. My mother ran it with him for 25 plus years. And I grew up in a home that ran its own business and functioned in that manner. So for me growing up, it was kind of par for the course in terms of would this be a natural thing for me in my life. I graduated from GW, and I think when you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, you either identify a need in the market where there's something that you feel like you can fill, or it comes from family history of, you know, families that are also invested in entrepreneurship. So when I moved to New York for 2 years and worked at a celebrity PR firm, and we'd have Kim Kardashian walking in the office every day, and I once, you know, watched all the Victoria's Secret models get changed in front of me, in front of my desk for a show they were preparing for that night. Working in that kind of high octane, high density PR firm lifestyle really helped me nurture who I am and cut my teeth in a very vigorous industry which was created in New York, which is public relations. I moved back to DC and started doing PR for my father, and all of a sudden this local plastic surgeon was in Us Weekly and People Magazine, and all his patients going for boob jobs and nose jobs were like, how are you in all these magazines? How are you on all these publications? And so, you know, I started by getting my dad's clients as his patients as my first clients. Working in the hospitality industry in Washington, watching his clients become my clients, having my father push me to continue to do what I was doing, and then open my firm at 25 years old when I didn't think that was gonna be my trajectory, but the clients started landing in my lap, and I realized that there was a need for hospitality PR in Washington, D.C., which this man knows a lot about, being in the hospitality industry.
Yes. Unless your neck mic works.
So for me, I think it was quite easy. The commodity I value the most for myself is my time and freedom. So at the end of the day, when I graduated college, I realized the only way that I could be in control of that was becoming an entrepreneur. So as soon as I got out of college, I opened the first restaurant, which was Munchies. And
all right, so you're both obviously very successful at this point, but can you tell us a little bit about how you got here? Surely there were some failures or some mistakes that you look back on and got you to where you are today.
I have the mic. Sure, failures, at least in my field, is the most important teacher, right? So you learn the most when things are not going well, and you learn to adapt, pivot, and get better and better over time. Just make sure the mistake doesn't kill the business completely, but that you can get back up, keep learning, keep getting better and better, and honing the skill. And that's how I've learned to get better with time.
I think some of the fears I had when I was 25 and starting my firm was obviously my age. I was worried that people wouldn't take me seriously, having my own PR firm. The second they asked how old I am, you know, they would kind of look at me and say, I'm not sure about that. I couldn't wait to turn 30 for that reason. I was like, once I turn 30, all my clients are gonna take me more seriously. I can pit them with 10K retainers every month, and like life is gonna change for me. It did, but in general, I think to conquer those fears, to be 25, and to start your own company, one of the things that the pandemic taught me was that making payroll is one of the biggest things you can fear as an entrepreneur. The first thing you do when times are tough is skip yourself on payroll. I've had to do that, you know, only a few times, but you know, I have had to do it. And when I had to lay off 10 people who had been working with me for 5 years, who I had trained out of college to be these badass publicists, I realized I'll never take meeting and making payroll for granted ever again. And I used that as my motivation to rebuild my firm post-pandemic, hiring people very slowly, One of them's over there in the audience. Being intentional about who I hired and making sure that no matter what, when I make a commitment to their salary, I can keep it. Because at the end of the day, you're putting food in people's mouths when you have a company. Your staff needs job security, and I think one of the things that keeps me motivated every day is being able to pay my team and take whatever home is left for myself.
Very cool. So I think the theme of this is success. You both have employees that you're in charge of, that you're responsible for, you own your own companies. Taking a step back and having the Arab American background that you both have and I myself have and I'm proud of, talk to me a little, or talk to the audience a little bit about how that's helped navigate all the obstacles that you've faced and how it's helped you succeed in both of your industries. And by that, I mean, as Arab Americans, we value family, we care about each other. So does that help in terms of your employees, maybe cutting them a little bit more slack or understanding if they have family issues or otherwise?
It teaches us to get punched 10 ways to Sunday and then just keep getting back up, right? Like, if we think COVID was bad for us, think in Lebanon, COVID was an afterthought. A financial crisis, we have a bunch of issues. So you learn to deal with stuff in a different way. Make sure, like, you look at people empathetically, like the talk was before, and just get back up, right? And you have to be resilient in business. You are going to fail. You are going to go down. So it's just get better, get back up.
I think David is downplaying a little bit how much his businesses are influential in this city and how hospitality and his culture seeps into those things. And the reason I say this is because from residents to the River Club to Munchies, your level of service and the way you treat your staff and every person who comes into your restaurants like family is, I think, really unique to the Arab American experience. Having worked in hospitality PR for a long time and having clients like Steven Starr, who owns Le Diplomat and Osteria Mozza, and having clients like Barry's Boot Camp and Joey Gonzalez, the CEO, when people come to our market and when my clients are tapping me for something, I provide a level of hospitality and respect that I think is really cultural to the way we are raised as Arab Americans. We're taught to respect our elders. Even if we're introverts, we're thrown into group situations, group parties, group gatherings way earlier than your average American who might not have such an extended family or might not even know their second cousin. Like, for us, that's unheard of. So I do think that working in the world of public relations, working in the world of hospitality, and myself doing PR for hospitality entrepreneurs, that cultural experience of knowing how to speak to a client like Steven Starr, who has a big ego, but is also a genius. Being able to work with that dynamic as if he's my ammo, is treating your clients like family is something we as Arabs are really good at. And I think that translates down to everything from if you own a PR firm and have a client roster of 35 people, or if you have a restaurant roster of, I don't even know where to start, between 200, globally, truly. So I think that our culture helps us a lot.
Okay, so the day-to-day business, changing topics a bit to the social media versus word of mouth versus websites. I know you're in both different domains, but talk to me a little bit about the importance of each one, or if you use one over the other.
I think you have to use a bit of everything, right? There's no one right answer, and for every business, it changes and you have to adapt quickly, right? So the social media landscape changed drastically from TikTok, Instagram, email marketing. Now they're bringing back SMS marketing, right? There's so many facets that you have to deal with and be open and willing to learn and get with the times. Like, websites are very important for restaurants. It's information, but there's like marketing, SEO, like there's a bunch of stuff. PR, that's a given. That's the easy part. But so for restaurants, it's just a bunch of different facets that you have to deal with.
And Dannia, you're not a fan of websites? I've heard.
I think because my website is so outdated, I'm embarrassed to disclose it to anyone. I think in the celebrity, New York style PR firm world, your website is really just a landing page. And in order to find out more about who you do, what you do, or back 10 years ago at least, you'd have to talk to the owners, Sunshine Sachs and Rogers and Cowan and PMK and all these big celebrity firms in New York. Their websites were a landing page and it was a referral business. That's public relations. It's unique in that way. We don't really have to do marketing for our firm because we get so many referrals through word of mouth. However, websites are important in terms of what your image is of yourself, but they're not always everything, in my opinion. I think social media, this is not reinventing the wheel, it changed the landscape. It changed everyone's lives, especially publicists who leaned on traditional press to get exposure for our clients. Now, what I'm doing, instead of hobnobbing with the New York Times food writer, I have to, schmooze and hang out with an influencer who's just, she's of influence because she's beautiful and she's flipping her hair in an alley in Georgetown looking gorgeous, and everyone wants to know what she's wearing and where she's going, and she's become this personality. So I think social media changed the public relations industry from, you had to devote half of your, contact list from traditional press to also social media influencers and making sure that they are getting the message out about your client and hosting them. So the PR landscape, every day a news outlet folds. So if you're not a PR firm that's adjusting to the times, given how few media outlets there are to pitch these days, how often do you get pitched? You need to adapt, and that's what we're doing, and that's why I've hired a whole social media influencer director of partnerships for my firm. She's over there in the crowd, and it's really important to hone in on that.
Great. One last one, and then we'll have 2 minutes to get some questions. Talk to me or the audience again a little bit about the importance of mentorship, and give us an example, each one of you, at least one, of one that stands out, over your careers both.
In Washington, D.C., I crashed a lot of events before I started getting invited to all of them. That's how you have to get into the scene, and I looked the part, I walked in there, I said I'm on the list, and I got into these parties, and I started to see these certain women who were just fluttering around the city. And I thought to myself, one day I'm going to make that woman my best friend. One of them was a woman named Tammy Haddad. I don't know how many Washingtonians there are in the city who happen to know who she is, but I crashed her White House Correspondents' Dinner brunch every year for 5 years before I finally landed Veuve Clicquot as a client and pitched her on making them the sponsor for her annual White House Correspondents' Dinner brunch. And from that day forward, she thought, who is this woman? Of course we're gonna take the sponsorship from Veuve Clicquot, and how can we work together more? It took a lot of work, but now she's a best friend of mine. She is a resource to me. I have admired her work from afar and worked really hard to make sure she knew how much I admired her. And I think when you see somebody who can change your life, or at least help your business, you kind of just go for it. And obviously my mother's my mentor and I have others, but I think Tammy sticks out the most.
For me, I'm lucky my mentors are my parents. Luckily, they're in the industry, in the same space that I'm in. So growing up in that and seeing them do it across 3 continents has been very helpful, and great resounding board, and they have your back, right? So it's like, thank you very much. Tell them thank you, my mentors. But yes, so having people in your corner and who have skin in the game is actually something that matters a lot. And you can learn from not just your mentors, but you got to keep learning from reading books, asking for help, asking people, and you can learn from anyone. So sure. I would recommend people to just keep learning.
So I don't endorse, but I also don't not endorse crashing parties, but you guys can try her method.